Olá pessoal, sejam muito bem-vindos ao meu segundo vídeo aqui do canal. Só antes de começar esse vídeo, se você ainda não é inscrito no canal, clica aqui nesse link e se inscreve aqui embaixo, se inscreve no canal, que de 15 em 15 dias nós temos vídeos aqui sobre um tema que todo mundo deveria querer saber, que é felicidade, e poucas pessoas pensam sobre isso, sobre a ciência da felicidade. Então se inscreve aqui no canal, dá like no vídeo se você já gostou do tema, certo? E para iniciar aqui o nosso vídeo de hoje, quero dizer pra vocês que esse vídeo é muito especial. Esse vídeo é sobre... Eu vou trazer aqui, né? Nós vamos conversar um pouquinho com a Honor. A Honor é uma pesquisadora do The Happiness Research Institute. É um instituto de pesquisa da Ciência da Felicidade que fica lá na Dinamarca. E quando nós fomos lá na Dinamarca, quando eu fui lá na Dinamarca agora, eu gravei, nós fomos ao Museu da Felicidade, que é o primeiro Museu da Felicidade do mundo. Lá na Dinamarca, em Copenhague. Nós fomos lá e aí eu gravei uma entrevista com a Honor. E nessa entrevista eu pergunto pra ela por que você acredita que a Dinamarca é sempre um dos principais países mais felizes do mundo. Porque não sei se você sabe que tá aí assistindo esse vídeo, mas todos os anos tem The World Happiness Report, que é um relatório focado na felicidade, que é produzido, né, pela ONU também. A ONU está aí produzindo o relatório. E todos os anos libera-se um ranking dos países mais felizes do mundo, segundo esse relatório, segundo os critérios desse relatório. E a Dinamarca sempre está ali entre os top 10 países mais felizes do mundo. Esse ano, por exemplo, a Dinamarca estava como segundo país mais feliz do mundo, só perdendo para a Finlândia. Finlândia que ficou no topo aí durante 6 anos no topo como país mais feliz do mundo. Então eu perguntei para a Honor, essa pesquisadora que está lá à frente, né, do Instituto de Pesquisa da Ciência e Felicidade lá na Dinamarca, e o instituto responsável pelo Museu da Felicidade lá na Dinamarca. E a Honor, eu perguntei: Honor, por que você acredita que a Dinamarca é considerado um dos países mais felizes do mundo? O que vocês têm aqui? Qual foi a intenção de vocês criarem o Museu da Felicidade? O que você acredita sobre isso? O que você pensa sobre a forma de se viver na Dinamarca? E a Honor respondeu tudo, foi incrível a entrevista. Você que quer saber um pouco mais, fica aí até o final, que nós vamos passar a entrevista aqui agora, certo? E a entrevista, assim, tem vários pontos muito especiais, então é importante que você fique aqui colado para que você consiga entender um pouco mais sobre isso, um pouco mais sobre o porquê a Dinamarca, enquanto sociedade, é considerada um dos países mais felizes do mundo, né? Uma das sociedades que mais se vive com foco na felicidade humana, certo? Então fica aí, vamos colocar aqui a entrevista agora. Hello again, Honor. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. Yeah, and first of all, thank you so much for being with us and for giving this interview. It's such an honor to be here in Denmark.
Yes, well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. We are excited about it. So let's go to our first question. Actually, for all of the people that will be watching this video, we are here at the museum, the Happiness Museum in Denmark. It's the first museum around the world in this field, yeah?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and we will talk about it just a few seconds about the museum, about the stories and all these things.
Yes.
But first, I want to know about you, of course. So tell us, what's your name, where are you from, and what's your job here at the museum?
Yeah, okay. So my name is Anna, and I'm an analyst at the Happiness Research Institute, and I've been there for 3.5 years. And my main job at the museum is I was very involved in making the museum, so together with my colleagues at the institute, we spent about maybe half a year, 9 months, researching, writing, collecting objects, collecting stories, and thinking of a way to put them together to tell the story we wanted to tell. And the idea behind the museum is very much to bring happiness into people's kind of everyday lives. It's a topic that has been very academic, and we would like it if everyone can engage with it. We would like school children to be able to better understand happiness. We would like people without a university education to be able to do the same. it's such a big topic, and happiness doesn't just live in one area, it's all over the place. So we have tried to take all these different angles and tell a little bit of a story about happiness, what it is and where it lives in our daily lives. That's the idea.
Oh, amazing! Such an amazing idea. And I was wondering about that happiness is not just something that we can talk about it. It's science too, you know. So tell us a little bit more about it and how the museum brings science to this space too.
Yes, of course. Well, the science of happiness is itself a very big topic. There's a lot of data already been collected, and people are still doing research and still collecting the numbers and the statistics behind happiness. And we think there is already some really good findings that have come out of the science, such as, where we are in the world, how that influences our happiness. We have all the numbers about the happiest countries in the world and also the least unhappy or the least happy. And then we have, things that are more to do with our bodies and to do with the brain and the physiology. And then we have also some science around, the different environments that we're in and how that differently affects us. So happiness is a very scientific field because it covers lots of different bases. It covers psychology and sociology and even neuroscience. And we are trying to present some of the most interesting data that we have on happiness. So, for example, we have a little bit about at what point in our life we are in, how that differently influences our happiness. We've seen quite generally that, for example, happiness tends to follow a U-shaped curve throughout a person's life course. So, we start off in life very, very high on the happiness scale, and then it kind of takes a dip. But fortunately, it then kind of goes back up again towards the end of life. So this is just one example of how we're trying to bring some data in, and often what we're trying to do with that data is show that what we all pretty much know to be true, that we need good relationships, we need to be in proximity to nature, we need to have a good relationship to ourselves, we need to pursue things that are not just about working and making money. We have then the ability here to put numbers to these things that we all kind of intuitively know are true and are part of our everyday lives.
Yeah, great, amazing. And it's big. I was wondering that a lot of people think that happiness is not as a field that deserves a study, think about it,
Yeah.
And I think that actually we are from Brazil, so in Brazil we have a lot of things to do, like the financial things. We have to pay the bills, not that here in Denmark you don't have to pay the bills, but in Brazil we have a different kind of world, and a lot of people actually doesn't have it's not the time, but it's not the main thing to think about it. And what do you think about this? What you're feeling, what you think about how can we bring more happiness around the world, and how can we, as another country with different culture, can bring more that Denmark souls,
Yes.
to Brazil, for example.
It's a really good question because I think it is very dependent on where we are. Sometimes we're in places where it doesn't feel like a priority, right? In Denmark, for example, there is a really good balance between work and life, which I think allows people to have more time to reflect and to think about what makes me happy, what brings good feeling in my life, what brings meaning and purpose. And sometimes we're in contexts where that's not possible, or at least it's harder. But something I tend to see pretty universally is that we, in this day and this age, I feel like we have this tendency to be looking for some kind of recipe or some kind of special key or some kind of secret to happiness, as though we don't already know. It's like, well, I don't know what the secret is to happiness. I'm not feeling happy, and there must be something I don't know. And I think that's maybe where we get it a little bit wrong, because I do think we all know what is good for us and what brings us happiness. I think we all get that feeling of, if I take care of my relationships to others and to myself, if I take care of my body, if I take care of my mind, if I do things in a day-to-day basis that bring a little bit of joy, even if it is just one thing that you like, and not just waiting, I'm gonna wait for my vacation to be happy, or I'm gonna wait until I've got a promotion to be happy. If it is about bringing it more into kind of a daily integration, I think that can make a bigger difference than some kind of secret recipe. I sometimes refer to it as the I'll be happy when effect. And I think that is maybe where we go wrong, because there are moments of happiness and there are ways to integrate that sense of well-being and that sense of positive feeling in an everyday context. But I think quite often we place it on these, big goals or big achievements or big moments where really it can be brought down to a daily level. And I think that's what is done well in Denmark. It's not as though happiness is related to just these big moments. Of course it is as well, but there is also a sense of relating happiness to daily moments, like just having this nice conversation, or for example seeing friends later, or doing something nice at the weekend, or the fact that it's Easter next week, so you'll get a little bit of time off. It's more of a daily integration. One of my favorite comments that I got from a guy who was here in the very beginning, and he said to me, I always knew I was a happy guy, and this just confirmed to me why. He said, because I live by the ocean and I spend time with people in a weekly basis, and I volunteer, and it seemed like it just reconfirmed to him everything that he already knew. And we're not going to show anything actually that groundbreaking in this museum. We're going to show quite some normal things, but what we do is put numbers behind it to give that sense of, there is science behind this and there is data behind this to confirm that there are things that we all have in our lives that do really move that needle on happiness, and just maybe by putting a little bit more attention and a little bit more focus on them, it can really start to change things. Like, for example, one of our best findings is that just 15 minutes outside a day really does make a difference to people's moods. And that's something that we can all do. Connecting with someone that you feel that you can be yourself around, that is also something we can all do on a daily basis that makes a difference. Doing an act of kindness, that again, if a daily mood, if we're looking at just mood from one day to the next or 1 hour to the next, again, it's something that can move the needle. Sometimes I think we get a little bit caught up with the big factors, like I live in a country where there is not the same opportunities as Denmark, and that is true. There are regional differences across the world, across countries even, that mean happiness can not be as achievable. And I think it's important to differentiate between how we feel about our lives overall and how we feel in our lives. And maybe we can't always change how we feel about our lives because it is influenced by factors that are sometimes out of our control. But how we feel in our lives is a little bit more, we have a little bit more agency. We can decide to take those 15 minutes outside, to call a friend, to do something good for someone else, to try and, if stress comes in, try and take a strategy to do something about it, like deep breathing or whatever kind of exercise works for you. So I think it's important to think about what is within my control and what do we know actually does make a difference there.
Beautiful, and actually it's really beautiful, and it's what I believe by myself, and what we do in Brazil with our clients and all this stuff. And I have one question that is, I think that you already answered, but I would like to know a little bit more about it because it's such a curious thing for us in Brazil. Like, why do you think why you think Denmark is one of the happiest countries of the world?
Yes. So Denmark is part of Scandinavia, and Scandinavia generally has been the happiest region in the world since the UN started looking into kind of world happiness in 2012. And I think there's a lot to say about it from kind of a cultural level, but also political level. In Denmark, there are some of the factors that explain why countries are happy. They are GDP per capita, life expectancy at birth, freedom to make life choices, social support, absence of corruption, and generosity. So these are these 6 big factors that explain why Denmark is a happy country, but it also explains why other countries in the world are not, or are not doing so well in the happiness ranking. But to speak a little bit more about culture, you may have come across the culture of hygge in Denmark, that there's this very special Danish word that doesn't really have translations into other languages. And I think often the understanding is that this is just something Danish, but I think it is something that we probably all do across the world. It's just that Denmark has this specific word for it and there's a lot of focus on it. But the idea of hygge is very much that we are consciously taking time to do something nice for ourselves. And for some people that's, spending time by themselves, reading a book, drinking tea, whatever it could be. And for some people it's socializing, or it's going out dancing, or it's, it's doing something where you're being intentional about creating a good moment. And quite often it's, in English, it would be translated to coziness. And I think that's pretty close, it's something where you feel good inside, but it's not necessarily that there is one way to do it. It is something that probably a person in every country can do and maybe already do, but Danes have this specific word about it. And that's not to say that it's just hygge, which is why Denmark is a happy country. There is a lot of social support in Denmark. We have free education until the master's level. And
this is really important.
Yeah, it is, because students can stay in education, they can take time with it, they can study what they want to study, what they're interested in. And there's also financial support from the government to students. They actually get paid to go to school. So students receive like a monthly salary that they never have to pay back. It's just a grant. And the education is free, so they're not leaving with a lot of debt also. And we have free healthcare, free universal health insurance, so that also takes away a lot of worries. I think what the Danish state does well we pay a lot of taxes here, that is something to say, we pay some of the highest taxes in the world, but I think you see the return of that money in Denmark. And because you don't have to worry about, am I going to be able to afford my medication? Am I going to be able to afford to send my children to school? What if I lose my job? What if I need to take time off? What if? A lot of these worries that I think so many of us in other parts of the world have are taken care of in Denmark, and maybe that does allow for more time of reflection, more time away from worry to think about things that actually bring goodness into our lives, rather than spending so much time worrying about, happiness being taken away and bad things coming into our lives. Yeah, so I think that's a little bit about why Denmark does well.
Yeah. Just this, it's a little things, but it's beautiful because actually we think that maybe we should transform or change everything in our country, but it's not like that, We can do some small stuff and we can change our community that is close to us.
Yes.
In our environment.
Yes, and community is so important because we are relational beings. We can't survive on our own, and so community relationship, that is something that is so integral to the study of happiness. That's actually something interesting. In Denmark, I think it's 9 out of 10 Danes will say that they have someone with whom they can discuss intimate matters with. So, there are people that we can be known by, we can let ourselves be vulnerable around, that we can let ourselves be seen by. That's so important that we have at least just one person in our lives who we can really share what's going on in us with. If we don't have that, then we don't get that social support, and we don't get that sense of community. And I think community can just be 2 people, but it can also be 100 people, it can be 1,000 people. And how can we bring people together? How can we connect them? How can we create spaces where people feel seen, feel known, feel loved, trusted?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Just a few questions. And we are talking now about the museum itself. So tell us a little bit about what you have inside the museum, and if we can do this in another countries, for example in Brazil. Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good question. The main idea of what we have in the museum is a lot of things to show all the different perspectives we can understand happiness from. So it's not just about the emotional happiness, but it's also about, for example, what is a good example? We have a lot of different facts and figures and data on what it is that we know about happiness from the research, from all the studies. So we have a lot of different visualizations. We have ways to show, for example, the relationship between money and happiness, that we sometimes think, oh, the richer I get, the more happy I'll be. And we have these graphs that show actually the relationship between wealth and happiness. We have objects that have been donated by people that all around the world to reflect happy moments in their lives. We also have a few different objects which reflect some things that we know from the data, like for example the influence of daylight on us. We have in the museum a daylight lamp because we're in Scandinavia and there's very, very cold, dark, long winters, and there have been research around what the effect of light does to our mental health and to our mood. So we have some lights in here, and we also have some videos that are playing, different sounds and showing different environments, and to reflect some studies that we've done about that. Yes, we have lots of different things. We've tried to approach it from a scientific angle, from a geographical angle, a political angle, a more historical, philosophical angle, and then a very, very personal angle where we ask people to leave all of these post-its and give their interpretation. We don't just want to tell people what happiness is, we also want to learn what happiness is from people. So it's a way that we can give information, but we can also receive a lot of information back and a lot of experience, and
yeah, beautiful. This is one of the rooms here at the museum, and people actually came here and write about what is happiness for them.
Yes, they do. Yeah, this room is called Happiness Around the World, and we have post-its in, I so far have counted 35 languages, but I think there are more, and there are by now thousands of post-its. This is 2.5 years, probably a little bit longer than 2.5 years of post-it notes, and they have been left by people from all over the world, and it's also with objects that have been donated to us from all around the world. So it's a very global picture of happiness, but what is in common is that all the people that have left them, the thing that that unites them is that they have been to the museum, they have been reading what we have put out, and
it's amazing. It's amazing work, Congratulations for the work. It's so inspirational for us. And the last message that I would like to ask you is, would you like to send a message to our Brazilian community?
Yes, I would. What shall I say? First, I would like to just say thank you for your interest in our work, because we are a small company in Denmark, and we're a small museum in the center of Copenhagen, and to know that all we're trying to do here is to make people a little wiser about happiness, a little more thoughtful, and just making them feel a little closer to the study of happiness. So I would just like to say thank you for your interest in our work, and also that I hope just one of the things we have said here have made an impact. I really think that Brazil is, I have never been, and I would love to go.
Oh my God,
yes, I would love to visit.
Go,
Yes, so I can't necessarily speak to the culture of Brazil, but I do really think that we can learn from each other. Quite often people from other parts will come to Denmark and say, what can we learn from Denmark about happiness, because it's the happiest country in the world. But I also think there's a lot we could learn from you in Brazil. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about Denmark, and I hope some of it resonates, and I hope some of it can be implemented into the daily life around the world, because I think whether we are Brazilian, whether we are British, whether we are Danish, we all are human beings. There are these universal things that just mean a lot to us as humans, that really do embody happiness no matter where we're from. We're all looking for this feeling of being part of something, from having good memories, from having good experiences, good moments, and that is something that we can unite over, no matter where we're from.
Yeah, we all want to be happy, yeah?
I think we
so,
do.
yeah,
Yes.
if you are a human being, you want to be happy. So,
We do. We want to be happy, and I think we want to share happiness with other people.
Yeah.
And that is also something maybe to stay close to. That it's not just something that we have to be by ourselves and spend a lot of time thinking about what is the meaning of happiness, but talking to each other about it, learning from each other, sharing with one another. I think it's one of my favorite questions to ask, you know, because I'm asked a lot as a researcher, what is happiness? But I don't have a better knowledge than anyone else. Maybe I know a little bit more about what people have said all over the world, but my opinion is still my opinion, like your opinion is your opinion. And I think we can learn so much from each other about that.
Yeah, sure, of course. Honor, we came to the end of the interview. Thank you very much about your time. It was a pleasure and an honor to be here, as I said before. And thank you very much for all of you that was seeing us here. And I think that your message actually will flourish in Brazil in some ways, you know? So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for a really nice talk.
Yeah. Thank you.
Agora que você já assistiu a entrevista, espero que tenha feito muito sentido pra você, porque ela foi feita com muito carinho dentro do Museu da Felicidade, lá na Dinamarca, em Copenhague. E aí aquela sala ali dos post-its é uma sala muito especial, que pessoas do mundo inteiro vão deixar suas mensagens lá, então é uma sala muito especial mesmo. Então espero que tenha feito sentido pra você, espero que você tenha aprendido, espero que você tenha aberto ainda mais, né, a sua cabeça, a sua consciência, novas possibilidades de se viver, novas formas de ver a vida. Eu acredito que essa entrevista traz muito isso também, né? E se você gostou, dá o like de novo, se inscreve no canal e comenta aqui embaixo uma palavrinha do que foi essa entrevista aí pra você ter assistido esse vídeo, tá bom? Um beijo e nos vemos no próximo vídeo.